Previously, we were talking about making a guessing game with Python. Now, there's a variety of guessing games out there, but I was talking specifically about making a number guessing game, where there's a random number chosen and you have to guess a number, and you try to get the number right. Now, before making that, I suggested understanding how to play it. It's a good idea to understand how a game works before you try to make it. And there are certain strategies for guessing games. And this is what we talked about last time. How would you guess in a way that is strategic? In the previous example, I believe my range was 1 to 100. I had a very specific strategy, and hopefully you figured out a strategy that works for you as well. But does your strategy change depending on what your range is? So, if the range was only 1 to 10, how would you guess? Would your strategy change? What if the range was only 1 to 3? Would you change your strategy? If someone's saying choose a number between 1 and 3, and you can guess as many times as you want, you might just start at 1 and then say 2 and then say 3, right? Because there's only 3 possible options. And so maybe you don't care if you're super efficient or not because there's only 3 possible options. But what if the range is 1 to 100? Are you going to start at 1 and then say 2 and then say 3 and then hope that hopefully the random number happens to be close to the bottom? Are you going to start in the middle and go up or go down or go back and forth? So 50, 51, 49, 52, 48. Like, how are you going to do it? Are you going to start at 100 and go backwards? Are you going to randomly choose whatever and just hope that you happen to land on it? What is the strategy? And of course, it depends on how the game works. In my example, I talked about having a guessing game where you get feedback. And that's important because if there's no feedback, then you have no way to improve your guess. If we have no feedback, we might as well just guess starting at the bottom and moving all the way up to the top, because we won't know until we actually hit the right one. And this is a linear search method. We are just going in a line in order from start to finish. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up until you get to 100. That's a linear search. However, if you have feedback, there's a much more ideal solution. If we're doing 1 to 100, assuming we're getting high and low feedback, my first guess would be 50. If the random selected number happened to be above that, then it's going to say that I'm too low, and I now know that I'm working with a pool between 51 and 100, right? I mean, I could guess the lower ones, but there's no point because I know it's not any of them. So I've just eliminated half of the pool. Whereas if I was doing the linear search, I would have to make 49 guesses still until I got to the same point. In the pool of 51 to 100, my next guess would be a 75. Once again, I'm splitting that in half. So if my guess is too high and the random number that's been selected happens to be below 75, it's going to say too high. And now I know that the pool is 51 to 74. So I've once again cut out about half of what the pool had been a moment ago. So it was 100, then it became 50, now it's around 25. From here, I'm going to try to split this roughly in the middle again. So I'm going to go with 62. If it says that it's too high still, now I know that the range is 51 to 61. So now I'm around 10, so that's pretty good. And I'm only on guess 4. If I say 56, and it says too high, then I know it's between 51 and 55. And we just keep going until we get the actual answer. So 53 out of 51, 55, if it says too high, I now know it's 51 or 52. It's one or the other. And if I say 52 and I happen to have it right, then it says that I guessed it on my 6th guess. Now, it could have been wrong. It might have been 51, and I might have been too high still. I might have needed one more guess. But I should not have ever needed more than 7 guesses for this range, for a range of 100 possible values. Each time we're splitting it down the middle. And this is what we call a binary search. Now, we'll talk more about search methods later on, so don't really worry about it too much. But we're looking down the middle of a pool that has been sorted, and then we're using that feedback to figure out where to go from there. So 1 to 100, that is already sorted from 1 all the way up. And like I said, don't worry about it too much right now. We'll go into it more later on. So if you're not using a strategy, or if you're using a strategy that's not very good for this sort of problem, then it's going to take more guesses. If you happen to have a good strategy, then it should be very easy to get a good answer. And you should never need more than log base 2 of your range. So, for example, if the range was 10, it should never take me more than 4 guesses. If it's 100, which it was a moment ago, it should never take me more than 7 guesses. We're rounding up, of course. If it was 1,000, it should never take more than 10 guesses. If it was 10,000, it should never take more than 14 guesses. And you can try this out. You should try it out. Go ahead and try it out. Using the guessing game program, try changing the range using that binary method where you're always choosing the middle value and using the feedback to better align your next guess, and see about how many guesses it takes you. It should never take you more than log base 2 of the total range. This alone becomes very boring for a game. Once we know the best strategy, if there's no other variability, no matter of chance, then it can become very boring. Now, depending on the type of game, sure, like a strategy-based game can be very enjoyable if it's complex enough. But something this simple, when your strategy is so foolproof, becomes boring. There's no speed needed. There's no sense of luck. It's just, do you know the strategy or not? And I guess, are you paying attention to your feedback? So that's why I was saying, what are some other ways that we could make this more interesting? Of course, some of these other features might impress a new player at the start, like keeping track of wins and remembering the player, maybe difficulty levels. But even still, once you know the strategy, it's not going to change really the way the game is played or experienced. Not enough to keep them interested. So that's why I was saying maybe like hot and cold might be more interesting, because telling them that they are warm but not giving them an exact direction might make things a little bit more interesting. And maybe clues. And once again, of course, there could be other ideas. And if you have other ideas, you should give it a try.